All right. To kick off our session, yes, now we see you, Mohammed.
Hi, Lucky.
How are
Good to
you,
see you
Mohammed?
again.
Yeah. It's always a pleasure to have you. Look, those who are outside need to be inside, and so that you can all enjoy the discussion. We are going to be engaging on a discussion talking about protection and safeguards for internet government institutions in Africa. And in our panel, as they have been introduced, we have Madam Thelma Quay, and then we have online Alhaji Mohammed Diop. And with us here, we have Amin Dayak, and myself, the moderator, Lucky Masilela. And this session will last exactly an hour, and you will also have an opportunity to ask questions. So if you do have questions, keep them to yourselves. We will allocate time once the deliberations have been done and the banning platform has been addressed adequately. I have been warned that this is going to be quite an exciting topic because of the nature of the topic and the timing of it and the banning issues around this very topic that we'll be dealing with. Now, to set the banning scene for us, the issue of protections and safeguards for internet governance institutions in Africa is a very critical element. And just to give some context to this thing, when you think of internet governance, one almost can see that it is built around the precepts of internet architecture, internet infrastructure. It is one, distributed, which is there are numerous players that are participating. Two, it is participatory. It means that it brings in stakeholders. And then three, it is layered. It is an ecosystem where there are multiple layers. There's a governance layer and there are solutions. And all of these layers are connected together. Out of this comes protection and safeguards. Now, from these, one can call these safeguards and protections checks and balances. That's what it is, checks and balances, to ensure that policies are implemented. They are what we call enablers. So there's going to be policy formulation for these checks and balances, and there's going to be enablers. This is going to be mechanisms that ensure that these policies are realized and adhered to. And also one can see these as the mechanisms in place. So we are no different as a continent to the rest of the regions. We have adopted policies. We have also built in some structures, organizations to try and be compliant, to be in tune, to be in sync with proper structures for protection and the support that we need. And some of these institutions that we have built over the years are your AFRINIC, we have AFRINIC, we have AFTLD, we have AFRIN. And these entities, just to name a few, are member-based and some are community-led, and all of them, stressing, are regulated or self-regulated, as there are no supra or oversight bodies. Now, to deal with the elephant in the room, the AFRINIC crisis. The AFRINIC crisis, which emanated with disputes, started with the members, and was in 2019, and there was misappropriation of resources, violation of the RSA policies. It turned into a long crisis. There was no board, no CEO. Now, this is one of the very institutions that was supposed to protect and put safeguards for the internet governance on the continent. And what happened? It was almost collapsed. So this is where we are today, almost collapsed, but not anymore. We tell a different story. As I prepare to continue, I'm going to now, in anticipation of this heated discussion, I will remove my jacket to deal with this thing and throw the first question to Madam Thelma. And I want you, feel free, please, don't take too much time. I'll give you at least 10 minutes to talk through this. All the delegates here, the panelists, talk to us, but first introduce yourself. Feel free and introduce yourself. Whilst at it, give us your view on the safeguards for internet governance. How do you see this broadly and how it impacts us and how it should be nurtured? I will start with you as we are in a space of working with ladies first. So whilst I take my jacket and sit next to you, please, the show is yours, Thelma. Then we will have Amin. Then, of course, we'll go over to Senegal and have our good friend, Mohamed. Thank you. Take off my jacket now.
Thank you.
No boxing gloves.
Unfortunately, I don't have the luxury of taking off my jacket as well. So allow me to introduce myself as well as the organization I work for. My name is Thelma Kwei. I am the director in charge of digital infrastructure, skills, and gender at Smart Africa. Among other things under digital infrastructure is also internet governance, and hence our involvement with the matters of AFRINIC. And for the purpose of those who may not know about Smart Africa, it's a Pan-African organization founded in 2013, and our mandate really is to accelerate the digital transformation of Africa. Our mandate is also endorsed by the African Union, and in terms of our governance, we have the heads of state of our member states being on the board, and then we have ITU, the African Union, sitting on our steering committee, driving affairs of operational matters, and then, of course, the Secretariat, which is headquartered in Kigali. So, to the question, are you going to bring the gloves? No. So, to the question from Lucky, how do I see it? The way I see it is the fact that there are a lot of players, and every player is very important within the ecosystem. Every player has a unique role to play. There were those who started right from the beginning. I mean, the fathers of the internet, those who brought about AFRINIC when a majority of the continent did not even know what IPs were. And then there is the likes of, the African Union, the ATU, Smart Africa, and I believe for us, we came quite late. We were very, in fact, even in terms of operationalization, we only started in 2016, and by then, AFRINIC was, I believe a teenager at that time. And so, that being said, I believe that everybody has a role to play, but the way I see it is that everybody plays their role in silos. And it's important that we have platforms such as AIS and other platforms to be able to come together, have a good discourse, and discuss matters of internet, not only discuss, but also see how we implement, see how we shape policies, and see how we retain the very fundamental philosophy of the internet. So that's very briefly how I see it.
mic is not on here, so I'll use this mic. The question is, the most important thing here is in looking at the protection and the safeguards for internet governance in Africa. And we are saying, what do you think would be the burning issues around those critical elements? Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't answer the burning issues, but yeah, I just gave my opinion on what it is. So in terms of the burning issues of the ecosystem, as we have seen with what has happened with our dear AFRINIC, I think there's institutional fragility. And when I talk about that, you know, when AFRINIC was created, and, you know, privileged to still have some of the founders here, it was created with all the goodness of heart of people. You know, some of these challenges that came later on were not foreseen at the time. I'm an engineer and I can understand that, you know, sometimes we just want the things to work. We don't care about legalities. We just want the things to work. And so for me, it's important that we do not put blame on anyone, but we work to resolve that institutional fragility that came as a result of the people who set it up from all the goodness of their heart and from all the best of knowledge they had at that time. So that's the first one. Smart Africa got involved in this matter in 2022. That's when we got to know. And I'll come back to what we did. But what we also realized is the exclusion of many stakeholders. Whether by design or not, there are a lot of stakeholders that have a lot of apathy within the ecosystem. That's also one burning issue, because the way, the philosophy of the whole internet system is a multi-stakeholder approach. It's an approach that requires that, you know, the whole community is involved. And so when we have this specific issue of stakeholder exclusion, that cuts to the very fundamental philosophy of the ecosystem. The final one, for me as a burning issue, and perhaps most critical, is that the crisis that just ended, well, I can't think that's ended. The crisis that we had at AFRINIC put our digital sovereignty at risk. If we cannot manage our own IP addresses today, we have a lot of emerging technology coming up. How are we going to manage it? And that's not, again, to say that somebody is at fault. For me, it goes back to the fundamentals on how it was set up and how we should, you know, try and see how we can fix the fragility of the institution. But when I say the institution as well, in my mind, the internet governance fraternity is not only about AFRINIC. It goes beyond AFRINIC. There are a lot more stakeholders within it. So it's a holistic approach, as I say. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you on that one. We'll come back to some of the comments that we've made, which are very critical. Working in silos, the fragility that you were addressing. And those are some of the key issues that we need to be mindful of. But before we even interrogate further what you have raised about the silos and how best we can deal with those issues, may I invite my friend next to me here? Amin, please, yes.
Well, I am a network engineer, and I'm the owner of Megamore Wireless Broadband Limited, okay? Simply put. About this issue of AFRINIC, it has exposed that our internet governance system in Africa, it has a core problem, which is continuity. There are no frameworks that has been set forward in case there is any litigation or any problem that will be coming, so that we can safeguard the system. And just simply put, okay, AFRINIC crisis has exposed this vulnerability, okay? Litigation has escalated from resource dispute to loss of board, annulment of election, then receivership, then allocations of critical IP resources has stopped, and we were all left without new delegations of IP resources. The lesson is very simple. Independence without resilience and safeguards is fragile. That's why we must embed safeguards in every African internet governance institution or technical institution. Otherwise, the next paralysis could strike internet exchange points, CCTLDs, and RENs, and you just discussed about the .Africa and the litigations that you had. But also we should work as stakeholders. As you rightfully said, it's a multi-stakeholder environment. You as governments, you are welcome. You can contribute. Smart Africa, to the best of my knowledge, you represent 42 states out of 54 states of Africa. So having AU and ATU is another discussion. I don't know what's their role on your board. You should always listen to the main stakeholders who form first the membership and the member base of AFRINIC, because they are the real key to any change in AFRINIC. They are the core key to any change in AFRINIC. And also, they are the ones who are going to vote on any reform that you have. So you must bring them first to the table before the ATU, before the ITU, and before anybody else. And before your technical consultants as well. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Amin, on that one. And I think one of the things that one will have to interrogate further, you apply your mind on this, is when we had discussions around AFRINIC in 2023 in Johannesburg, one of the issues that was raised was they saw this as a crisis. And in business terms, it required a disaster recovery plan. When you run out of resources, in the true sense of a business person, you don't look at the legality of it only, but it's how do you get your business up and running as quickly as possible, and the protection of your resources. Let me then move across to the east, the far west of the continent. Mohammed, please, your thoughts.
Thank you, Lucky. I think that your first question just summarized the interest of this session, and I think that it has been quite a while setting up the scene by Telma. I think that the question of safeguard and protection when it comes to the internet governance has to be defined through periods. I mean, especially for us African people. Coming back to the establishment of ICANN, we know that at that time, the question was how do we make stakeholders being around the table and discussing? It was government, private sector, and civil society were all both together trying to set up an organization that was supposed to deal with all policy matters. But when it comes to Africa, our first challenges was to be there, to participate. And I think that at that time, the question was not to protect or safeguard anything. It was, we want to be there. We want to have our voice heard. We want our organization to be there. And that was our first challenge, is if you look at from the time that ICANN have been established up to the recognition of AFRINIC as one of the first successful organization, 2004-05, it took years. It took almost, let's say, 6 years before that. It means what? It means at that time, all the region have been served by an organization, but Africa not. When we want a resource allocation for IP address or whatever to set up our networks, we talk to European organization, or we talk to an American organization like ARIN or RIPE. So our first challenges as pioneers was what? Was to create African organization. But by whom? By technical engineers. Because at that time, the people who were trying to fight to set up networks are engineers, networkers. So our challenges was not what legal status we need to have. What type of organization do we gonna have? Is that relevant to have, I mean, at that time, IP addresses was not seen as common goods. No, it was public resources. And I think that it was very important to see that shift, what happened in the landscape of the critical resources. We come from an area a time where people are not looking IP addresses, domain names, all this stuff, not to make money, but to serve our communities. So our first challenges was set up networks, get IP blocks, and give it to network operators, ISPs, telcos to run the networks. But at that time, IP addresses as not looking, I mean, people did not look at IP addresses as valuable asset that people can get money out of it. That was not the goal. And I think that the problem starts when we lack defining what type of relationship AFRINIC would have with its members. AFRINIC is not a sales company. AFRINIC did not sell anything. AFRINIC allocate resources that did not belong to it. I mean, it's just the relationship that have shifted. And I think that the shift from members to owners, I mean, there was so confusion that have been created. We did not stand as a regional organization serving the whole community. We shift from an organization that belonged to all Africans to a limited liability companies to belong to shareholders. And that's where all the dilemmas come from. I think that if we want to raise all the burning points, we need to come back to the initial condition where AFRINIC have been set up, for example. It was a good example. And what type of company did we create? How can you deal with public goods? How can you deal with what we call global utility? How can we deal with a company that are not supposed to make profit? AFRINIC was not supposed to make money. It was supposed to serve the continent. So the notion of common goods and global goods and public utility will shift all the dilemma on who will be competent to judge problems and to sort out problems. And that's really where all the problems are coming from. And I think that this is important that we understand where the problems are coming from. So our burning point that we have right now is question relating regulation, the immunity of our organization, the participation, what type of relationship AFRINIC will have with its members. I'm not talking about the stakeholders, the members. Is AFRINIC reliable or accountable to the global community, to the government, to all stakeholders, not only its members? And I think that if we did not define again this type of relationship, if we not bring back, I mean, the landscape on who's going to be the full stakeholder of all these things, I think that we will not start sorting out the problem. So I think that this is just an opening remark regarding where the confusion have started. And when people have started seeing AFRINIC as an organization that they can attack, I think that the question of the jurisdiction who is able to judge AFRINIC, this was a big problem. And I think that it has to be raised and put on the table as well. Because AFRINIC is not a company that can be judged nationally in a country. It serves a transnational issues because it delivers goods to all African continents, 54, not only one. So the Mauritius government will not be able to charge out AFRINIC based on just the fact that AFRINIC has been registered like a liability company in the Mauritius. So these are the problems that we need to raise at that point to understand how we can move forward when it comes to protect, or where we got to put safeguard initially for an organization that is supposed to serve the public interest for the common good of the whole continent. Thank you, Lucky.
Yeah, interesting views, interesting points, and your articulation on the issues of the global utility is equally very important. We need to discuss that and interrogate what that is. And the issue that you raise of your non-profit versus your profit entities, I think it has been deliberate over the years that internet was for non-profit entities so that it could be affordable. But let me go back to Ma'am Thelma. You spoke about silos, that one of the nemesis, our Achilles heel, is that we are working in silos. And then also, if you can expand on the fragility that you are addressing.
Okay, so I would like to address a comment from my brother Amin. and then I'll
Most welcome.
go ahead. So, well noted on including the members of AFRINIC. I just wanted to clarify that for us, so AFRINIC is one aspect of the internet governance ecosystem. So we are looking very broad, beyond AFRINIC. So definitely, yes, the members are part of it. But also on the identity of Smart Africa, let me use this opportunity to clarify that Smart Africa also has private sector members. We have over 60 private sector members. So we also represent the interest of, let's say, for the benefit of the topic of discussion, the MNOs, for instance. We have MTN, we have Airtel, we have Axian Telecom, for instance, as part of our members. We also have academia, and so it's not just a government organization, just for clarity. Now, to your question on the inclusivity, right? You said the silos.
And the fragility.
The fragility. So for me, as I mentioned earlier, the fragility is not a factor of mistake, of anybody's mistake. It's a factor of how AFRINIC started. AFRINIC started with engineers, and as an engineer, you just want things to work. You have little concern for legalities and all those things. And so in terms of the way forward, it's important that we think about new reforms, for instance. And I know this has been something that has been in the offing, and now we have the opportunity to see how we can take it forward. And on that, I'm sure a number of stakeholders here were consulted by the consultants that Amin was referring to. And maybe I'll expand here on what we have done from the Smart Africa perspective. And so when we got to know about this matter in 2022, we took it to our board because that's where we get our mandate from. And when we went to our board, they asked us to find a solution to it. They gave us two major things. The first one was to see how can you change the identity of this organization so you can reduce the number of litigation, for instance, or because of the fact that IP is, a global digital good. How can you position this organization to that of an international organization status? So it shouldn't be treated like a local organization as it is being done now. And then the second one was more on diplomacy and trying to pursue the major litigant in this case to reduce the number of attacks. And so when we got that mandate, we did set up an ad hoc committee. And the mandate of that ad hoc committee was to study, to engage with the community, engage with the members, and understand what has been done, because we understood that a lot of what we wanted to do had already been done. So engage the community and come up with clear action plan, but also recommendations for the board. That is the Smart Africa board. And then based on that, we would see what we will do next. Now, in the course of implementing this, I'm sure a number of you were interviewed by three consultants that were recruited by the ad hoc committee to come up with these reforms. And these reforms, from our perspective, are suggestions that the members need to agree on. It's not an imposition. It's not something we are imposing. And it's something that there are options that we believe if the members agree on at least one of them would go a long way to resolve the fragility issue. Because some of these reforms also looks at the bylaws, it looks at what has to be introduced, it looks at, do you just get up and go to the court, or you can have an arbitration, for instance. So some of that, it's quite a lot, and on 2 days ago we had a session on it. The details would also be shared, and our aim is to share this with the board. If the board decides that they want to act on it, that's really up to them. That is after we get approval from our board to share it with the AFRINIC board as well. So that's on the fragility.
Yeah, just
Now-
park your thoughts there, because I want to allow Amin to come in, on this other matter around the critical resources. Then we'll come back to you. We'll pick up on that, because what is even more interesting around that is the role of Smart Africa in the whole ecosystem. Because equally, when we look at the structures, the entities that have been established, they are also intended to provide this support, this protection that we are addressing right now. But we'll come back to that. I'd like, on the issue that you raise around critical resources, and linking it to what we are talking.
The critical resources, they always, we should not stop delegating IP addresses, if that's what you meant, okay? But I had some clarifications from Madame Telma here about the members of Smart Africa. Because as you said, and I remember from the meeting that we had before yesterday, okay, that there is the board and the governance, and then you have the members on the other side, okay? And I believe your membership is paid. And not everybody can afford that kind of money to be a member in Smart Africa or to be a member in multiple organizations just to voice whatever he feels that he wants to voice. That's why RIR system is designed to be open, inclusive, and for everybody. Anyone who can't attend this meeting today, he can attend online. He can give his own point of view. We don't hold meetings behind closed doors, even though the door is closed here, but it's open, it's being streamed live. People can contribute from any part of the world, and that's the essence of community work, all right? Then comes the priority who are members of AFRINIC, who are paid members of AFRINIC, who are going like to propose policies, even though the technical community can propose policies as well, all right? That's where I felt like Smart Africa is shortcoming on this, because there was no inclusion for everybody. It was an exclusive, maybe not membership, exclusive attendance to some meetings that you have held, which we have no idea when did you hold them, where, which discussions you had. And you mentioned an ad hoc committee. I don't know when was the ad hoc committee formed, because as you said that you have engaged since 2022. Today we are 2025. You know, technical environments, they cannot operate based on diplomacy, how you do your work. You send a letter, you wait for somebody's approval, and then you have to engage maybe a minister or somebody else, all right? We need solutions. For example, I applied, like any other members, we applied for internet resources back in 2022, and we got them in early 2025, or 2023, 2023. We got them early in 2025, just before the election. And that was a political message from the receiver, by the way, maybe, just maybe, all right? That I am a good guy, you will get your resources, and you can continue your business. Such critical infrastructure should not stop at a bottleneck, okay? That's it.
Okay. No, hold
Let
on.
me ju-
Give
let
me
me
a
ju-
second.
no, no,
Na-
let me-
Can
let
I,
me- let me clarify.
Can I add something on that point, because it's very important, yeah.
Thelma,
I think
I
it's
want
a-
you to take a breather. I don't want you to respond directly. And this is why I said to you, I took off my jacket purposely.
Yes.
So I want you to take a breather. I don't know what you want to take off,
Yeah.
Yeah, please, Diop Mohammed.
Yes, I think that I first forget to introduce myself, because I just start based on the passion, explaining things, how it works. But I'm Mohamed Diop from Senegal, okay? I have been involved since 1996 in the process of setting up these international organizations. I have been part of the AFRINIC formation, and from the AFTLD, IF-STAR, all the organization, I have been there. So in fact, it's very important what Telma was trying to raise again is how vast and the numbers of organizations that we have that are part of this internet governance. It can be part from the domain resources, it can be part from the addressing support organization, it can be part from the AFRALO side from the advocacy, from the training, the research. I mean, it's a broad and huge numbers of organizations that have been part of the internet governance. Some of them are more critical than others, because what happened when AFRINIC collapsed? No more IP addresses, no more ISN numbers. What our colleague was trying to raise is, as an ISP or as an MNO, you want to set up your network, you want to expand it, you ask for IP address, nobody was answering. So I think that the questions that I want to raise here is, as a global internet governance organization, I'm not talking just about AFRINIC, I'm talking about the whole global system, where ICANN is part of it, IANA is part of it, all the other regional registry are part of it. How can they define an intermediate situation where if they have one of the organizations that is facing local problem, how they can have continuity of service? It was not sought out. The document that we have available, like the ICP2, that organized the management of registry internet, the regional internet registry organization, they did not address that issue. So they try to modify it now, but I'm not happy with the way they're taking it, because the way they're taking it is, what's going to happen if AFRINIC collapse? Did they going to have a process of derecognition rather than trying to sort out, the fragment? Instead of thinking about the fragmentation of the African space, why the other organizations are not thinking the way to rescue and to manage virtually how they can have the continuity of service? This is really a big problem of internet governance issue. Like the situation that all the African network operators, ISP, are facing when a local jurisdiction, the local court in Mauritius, block the operations of AFRINIC. I think that this question will not be answered locally in Mauritius. It has to be answered through the Internet Governance Forum. And I think that this is really one of the biggest issues that we need to raise here, is we have a global fragile ecosystem of internet governance. And what I have said to ICANN is, if AFRINIC collapse, ICANN gonna collapse, because the whole equilibrium that we have created is based on a global trust, that as the multi-stakeholder approach, we trust it and we accept it, and we're gonna work together in order to make it reliable and resilient. So we would not let one regional organization like AFRINIC collapse without having the risk of the whole system collapsing. And that's really where I want to raise the point. So Smart Africa is one actor. iStar is one actor. I think that we raised the problem of the resiliency of organization for more than 5 years, since the first trigger coming from Mauritius. So I think that the problem we have here is we don't have any strong organization that can capitalize and just come with all the strengths of our different communities. We have small groups, all of them trying to, show up and say that I represent the whole community. That's not the fact. We need to come together and join our force in order to address the issue that we are facing. So that was my advice. Thank you.
No, thanks for that. And I know as you are cooling down, Thelma, I just want to paint another picture for us. The AF Star, there's, just quickly just look at the AF Star map. You look at capacity on this safeguards that we're talking to. Capacity is addressed by your AFNOG, is addressed by the entire AF Star entity. IP resources is addressed by AFRINIC. You look at the road servers, it's AFRINIC and AFPIF. The CCTLDs, we have AFTLD and AFRINIC connectivity, etc. So all of these areas, in one way or another, on the safeguards are addressed by the AF Star entities. And I must not leave out, on the registry side for GTLDs, it's Registry Africa, to ensure that the entire ecosystem is covered. Your comments, ma'am, and your response to Amin now.
I just didn't want to lose my thoughts. That's why I wanted to respond to him. But let me respond to you first. So, I mean, the fact that we are here is testament to the fact that we recognize AFSTAR, and we do want to work together with AFSTAR. We don't, I think from the beginning, what I said was that and Prof is not around, the founding fathers of, AFRINIC they did it from the goodness of their heart to the best of their ability, and nobody is faulting anybody. But there comes a time when things, evolve, and I believe that this tree grows and bears many, many fruits. And I'll link it to what Amin was saying. For me, if you compare Smart Africa and AFRINIC, there's the impression that Smart Africa is going to do what AFRINIC is doing. We are not here for that. No, because you said when you ask for IPs, you need it quickly, and we got involved in 2022, and we are in 2025. Smart Africa is operating at the strategic level, right? This is the mandate that we were given. We were not given a mandate to see to the operations of AFRINIC. Our mandate was to see how can you remove AFRINIC from these many litigations, and how can you try and give it some immunity, and that's exactly what we're doing. Now, in the course of that, and Lucky, you said it very well, when you have a crisis, you need to decide what are the immediate steps, what are the medium-term steps, and what are the long-term steps. In the course of that, for us, an immediate step was to help restore the governance, right? And that is why we had to work together with the community, and see how we can put together a community, a consolidated, list to help them to go onto the board. Now they are on the board is on their own, they are working. That is where it ends for us. We are not interested in the operations. So I just wanted to clarify, based on your comment, that no, we are not going into the operations. So you cannot compare the time we are taking, because it's strategic, to operational matters.
Thanks. Thanks for the clarification. Yeah, your last point there. Go ahead.
Okay.
Ma'am.
So the last point, I think, was on the inclusion part.
Yes.
You had requested, yeah. So for us, we are, and Amin asked me this question earlier on. We are new. We consider that we are new into the system, and we are very open to listen. It's okay to criticize. It's okay to tell us what we did wrong, but it's also important to us that you understand that we are learning and trying to build the system. And in terms of inclusion, to my brother online's point, we are proposing a Council of African Internet Governance Agencies. And this is where we hope that we can converge, and it's a platform for us to break the silos that I spoke about earlier. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for that, because that becomes very critical in terms of bringing in more protection, and also to address the issue that we have. Remember, the elephant in the room is the safeguards for AFRINIC, because we said we don't want a repeat of this. Before I even go back to my panelists, because I think you want to entertain questions from the floor. We have about 19 minutes into the clock, or left for us to run with this show. We'll start with questions from the House. Then after no questions in the House, we'll go to any questions online. But first, the House. And please introduce yourself for the record, sir.
Thank you. My name's Lawrence Olali Roberts. I want to thank you for this very interesting discussion we've had so far. I want to remind us also that at the core of AFRINIC is the belief or the sense that it should be and continue to run as a multi-stakeholder organization. I believe this is why it is structured the way it is. It has been structured. And we've had different talks since this crisis began about changing the base, possibly dominating it in the AU and all that. That, to a large extent, will also impact on that critical core that AFRINIC needs to stay as a multi-stakeholder, bottom-up process organization. Having said that, I know that in our current bylaws, talking about AFRINIC, there were provisions to have AFRINIC incorporated or operate in different regions across Africa. So we basically are not just tied to the nation of Mauritius. It could remain the registered organization, but even in our own bylaws, we have provisions where AFRINIC can operate from different regions across Africa. Why isn't this explored? And if this were explored, wouldn't it give us the resilience to have governance from other countries rather than just Mauritius alone? Thank you.
Okay, we'll park that question for Mohammed. Ma'am, thanks.
Lucky, you want me to answer?
No, after the question here, give me
Okay.
10 seconds.
Thank you very much for a robust discussion. I come from the school of thought that I don't trust governments. I don't trust governments because in the last 2 years in Kenya, we've had behavior that came from government that included manipulation of access to the internet by downing services. Now, AFRINIC being what it is and the services that it provides in terms of the numbers, which is really what the internet moves about. I mean, numbers just mean everything for all these providers who are part of this internet ecosystem. I am really afraid of giving strength to government because we've seen, depending on political interests, and even just how complicated Mauritius has been, and even we've seen the role of government, I'm really worried about, and I'm very thankful first because the government really tried to help through Smart Africa, but I'm really concerned that we haven't seen politicians, because this is like moving the internet infrastructure in terms of dominance and control from the hands of technical people to politicians. And I just don't trust them because we have seen that they use a lot of this to their advantage. While we have weaknesses as technical organizations, I think we can enhance bylaws and enforce them even technically in different ways. So I really want to say, I think there should be stages when certain stakeholders play significant roles, but we must be very careful that we don't bestow too much strength on African governments and places where heads of state can give each other calls, and we see these kinds of disadvantages, because we're talking about all users and a lot of things that can really, the regulators, all these things are in their hands. So I would like to understand, when we say that what Smart Africa is doing, I'm trying to understand what is Smart Africa doing and what's their role, because I see heads of states as the stakeholders in this institution, and I'm very afraid that they represent the face of African governments. And I haven't admired the behavior of my country's government when the internet became a resource for civil engagement. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Oh gosh, WISIS plus government have been participating, but that's for you. AFRINIC will deal with that. Ma'am, any other questions from the floor? Are we done? Are we happy with these burning issues? I know I will have AFRINIC say something after this, but online questions?
Online question from Francis Kwabuena. It's a question and a comment at the same time. So he says, by the way, what is Africa Union doing about the way Mauritius was able to, in quotes, block AFRINIC operations? How are other continental registries operating? Are they operating like that of AFRINIC or different? If so, AU should step in to build a structure that is more open and not face any such situation as AFRINIC faced.
Thank you. Mohammed, the first question from Lawrence, please take a shot. And then the next one from Afchix, and please, I will give it first to Amin, then to Thelma. Because I don't want it to be like...
Thank you, Chair. I mean, in order to answer quickly to that question, I think that we need really to see that there is a difference between the bylaw itself and what we call the status of the company that is registered in Mauritius. They are not in line, because when we register a company as a commercial company, with limited liability, I mean, they have status that people are using in order to sue AFRINIC in court, where the court did not have the competency to judge the relationship between AFRINIC and its members, because the relationship between AFRINIC and members is managed by a process that is defined within the bylaw. But if we stick in the bylaws, there was no problem. But it is because they did not consider that the competency of the Mauritius courts are not relevant to judge the situation between AFRINIC and its members, especially when AFRINIC is an international public utility corporation that works for the public interest, and there is a public order staff. So this was not supposed to be open there. So there are ways that we can sort out problems. When problem already happened, it's there. So there is things that can be raised, but by whom? I think that the question we should ask at that point is how we're gonna exit from that situation. They have many ways to do that. And I think that specialist lawyers can help us sort it out. It is what we call the in limine litis process, where a competency, where a court try to judge something that they don't have the competency to judge it. So this can be raised by ICANN. It can be raised by African Union. It can be raised by any African state that think that somebody is preventing them from using the regional resources that are allocated to Africa. I think that we did not see that pass. There is a technical problem where people are still keeping technical, but it's not technical. From the legal perspective, we can get out from that situation, because AFRINIC is not a sales, is not a commercial company. AFRINIC is not managing common goods. AFRINIC is managing public goods that are allocated by an international organization for the whole African continent, for our 54 countries. So how can one member can block all an institution just because they asked to one local court to sue that organization? AFRINIC cannot be sued by any local organization if we have the proper lawyers and if we put on the table what makes that organization being protected, even if they don't have what we call accord de siège. Even if they don't have it, they can be protected because they have transnational court jurisdiction that were able to sort out this problem. I think that the question that the other guys have raised is, AFRINIC has a provision to try to sort out the problem that they have locally in Mauritius if they see it under the legal perspective of an institution managing public goods that are transnational and that not belong to one country. AFRINIC is managing resources that belong to all Africans. And AFRINIC is an organization that is supposed to serve the global community. So it cannot be sued locally. We did not take the problem under that umbrella. So I think that it is really where we should go now and try to see how the legal part can help us and using the diplomatic part in order to sort it out. I think that the last comment was that people don't trust government or not. That's not the problem. AFRINIC has been set up with a multi-stakeholder collaboration. The government of South Africa put 500,000 money as a seed money to help AFRINIC start. So we cannot say that we are against or with government. AFRINIC have been set up by the contribution of the civil society, the private sector, and the government. And it should continue to work through that umbrella. Now it's not the case. we shift from a multi-stakeholder management, initial cooperation staff to something that is becoming only private. And that's where the problem is coming from. AFRINIC cannot be and will never be a commercial company like any liability company in the Mauritius. It is an international organization. That's the point. Thank you.
Thank you, Mohammed. Yes, Madam Thelma, the mic is yours. Yeah, no, he said he wants to be after you.
I'm ever ready. All right, so I answer AFRINIC, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So, first of all, is to clarify that Smart Africa has, 40 and over member states, countries, and over 60 private sector members. So we are not a government-only organization. That being said, please be assured, I don't want you to be troubled at all, because we are not interested in the operations of AFRINIC. For us, internet governance is bigger than AFRINIC. AFRINIC is a piece of the internet governance ecosystem of Africa. Our mandate is very clear and aligns to what my brother Mohammed was saying. It's to see how do we elevate AFRINIC, which is a component within the internet governance ecosystem. How do we elevate it to an organization that can be immune to these very numerous litigations? That's very clear. Now, to do it, at least there had to be governance. And that's why we had to work with the community, to support the community, to throw our weight behind the community-endorsed list. That's why we got involved. Now, after the board was set up, we are not involved in the board operations. Just somebody was asking me yesterday what the board is doing. I don't know. I don't want to know. It's too operational. So I hope this clarifies that ours is to restore or support. And even when I mentioned about the reforms, for the reforms, it's not up to us to implement. The reforms will be implemented, the choice will be made by the members through your board, and you would implement it. It's not up to us. We saw a gap, and we stepped in to help restore, to fill the gap, but also to help take AFRINIC forward. So I hope this clarifies that the government are not taking over. Thank you.
Okay, Amin, the mic is yours. You can also attempt the question online.
About the question online, about the question from the lady there, and about what Madame Thelma was saying, that we have to decide, do we need the government engagement or we don't want the government engagement? Government is a stakeholder in this ecosystem, but we can't give them the lead and the charge, okay, wholly and fully, to decide on candidate lists and to endorse candidate lists, and then bring them to the board and say, we have done our part. It's your own right now, okay? About the AFRINIC, it's the status of AFRINIC in Mauritius doesn't have any problem. The problem is with the legal representation. Let us all remember that those crises started maybe late 2018, early 2019. Today we are 2025. There is no problem with the founding status of AFRINIC in Mauritius as at that time, okay? There are unforeseen problems that has happened in 2021, which at that time we had the policy development group was still working and everything was still operational, and the board was quorate, and Dr. Hero, Professor, he was on the board at that time, okay? Everything was operational. It was just like to propose a policy and push it, which is a safeguard policy. In case anything happens to us, how are we going to sustain this organization to continue to be an RIR? I don't know why we're discussing the case of AFRINIC in isolation from the standards of any other regional internet registry in the whole world, okay? Now, given the peculiar situation that we are in with too many litigations and whatever, we pushed a proposal of a hybrid treaty organization. The governments will establish and they have no control, and the control remains with the members. All right? That proposal is available. Anyone who wants to have a look at it, it's also available. And there should be an arbitration panel inside AFRINIC, which is like supervised by a court in Mauritius. Any member who has any grievances with the registry as a registry, he should be able at least to sue this registry. But first, there should be an arbitration. Because in any commercial transaction, there is always an arbitration clause before you go to courts, before you go anywhere. We just have to structure our thoughts and work within the norms of the RIR system and the internet governance, and the ICP2 as well. Let's not forget about the ICP2. What I consider Smart Africa has done in this election is a political capture of the board. And I'm still on this opinion until I'm proven otherwise. Thank you.
Okay, what is this? The elephant in the room remains AFRINIC. And I think I will allow you 3 minutes closing. She is saying yes to 1 minute and no to 3 minutes. But I wanted to hear a comment from AFRINIC before I ask my panel to give me closing remarks, which would cover what next after this. What are the lessons that we've learned from this AFRINIC saga as a closing remarks? But before that, let me ask the AFRINIC rep who is in the house, we just shared some thoughts. Please give us another 3, 4, 5 minutes. We started at 11:39, if I recall.
Okay, thank you, Lucky.
So please allow us.
Thank you very much, Lucky, for giving me the floor. And okay, thank you. Once again, thank you, Lucky, for giving me the floor. And thank you for this very, very, very energetic discussion. 3 things I want to say very quickly. One, I hear Mohammed saying that the court blocked resources from being allocated. Sincerely, that may not be very correct. The court appointed an official receiver to conduct elections and to ensure that everything that has to do with AFRINIC is protected. So the official receiver, in his own wisdom, saw IP resources as a very important resources that he needed to protect. So he was the one that put a peg on allocation of resources. That was the first official receiver. Now, the new official receiver removed that peg, and after that, about 108 members are already allocated resources. So it was in the court. The second thing had to do with the processes between the processes that Smart Africa is going through now to propose some kind of reforms. I mean, it's very right. Members are supposed to be involved, but when you are going through a lot of processes, you may not be able to do everything at the same time. So Smart Africa is doing something, and I believe eventually they will have a document, they will have proposals that they will send to AFRINIC. Now, at that point, members will be the one that will decide what will be implemented and what will not be implemented. So when that time comes, I'm sure there are quite a number of other organizations or individuals that are going through these processes or different processes to put things together, but none of them can be implemented until members agree to what is going to be implemented. So at that point, I think we should, my sincere opinion, personal opinion, we should allow everybody to do whatsoever they want to do to help AFRINIC now, including Smart Africa. Those things that are being done can never be implemented without the agreement of members. So when members are ready, or when those documents, when those processes are put in the public domain for members to act on them, to comment, members should not go to sleep. Members should stand up and ensure that the right things are done. It's not time for us to begin to
disagree amidst ourselves the way things should be done, that is the process. When those things are completed, it will go back probably to the board to, if there are governance issues, to GovCom, and it comes to the public. And everybody should be ready to contribute. Now, finally, I want to ask the three of you panelists, and maybe the moderator, I want to ask you just one thing. Each of you should give us one thing that you think is a final solution to this problem, especially the litigations. What do you, just one, each of you, what do you think is going to be a final solution to it? Thank you.
Thank you. And so I will start from the far west, the extreme left of our continent in Senegal. Your closing remarks and one thing that has been asked. You have only 30 seconds.
Thank you. Look, thank you. Just quick answer, because it's very important that we end up this session by keeping in mind three things. The first one is ICP2 revision is a big problem. 2, the bylaw of AFRINIC did not have the provision for the arbitrage outside of Mauritius. It was not there. So nothing helped us sort out the problem the way we were supposed to sort it out. Third, I think that the last comment from the AFRINIC staff saying that everything is related to membership only, I think that we totally disagree for one main reason. People who get impacted by the decision and by all these things are African people. They are the end users. They are the people who get resources from AFRINIC. It goes through the MNO, but the end people who were not supposed to get their resources allocated, they are the African people. Why government, civil society, and all private sector get involved in that fight is not a question of membership. So thinking that everything ends up with a membership, I don't think is fair. It's not true, it's not fair. If it was not only members, AFRINIC will never come on board. AFRINIC have been set up with the help of government and private sector and individuals. So getting members and thinking that everybody have to go apart and thinking that they can sort out that issue, I can tell you, members only will never sort out the AFRINIC problems. And this is really my last comment. This problem, in that situation, with the local court deciding, with the official receiver, the new or the old receiver, the situation is unusual. No regional registry is facing such situation where there is a regional internet registry without a board, without a CEO, and an official receiver appointed by a court who run decisions. So seriously, let's talk real. If we don't set out this problem with the participation of a diplomatic implication of government, with a legal institution outside of Mauritius, nothing would happen in the process that we have. This problem have started in 2019. We are in 2025. We're going to still wait for 2028 with the dissolution and the end of AFRINIC replaced by 2 or 3 other regional organizations, because these are the provisions that we have within the revision of the ICP2.
Okay.
That's my final remark. Thank you.
Thank you for your final remarks. You are eating into your colleagues. Thelma, please, your closing remarks and that one point.
So maybe I'll start with responding to the question on what is the one thing. You know, if I had a business that had over 2,000 clients, I think I'll be a very wealthy woman. And so I think that the one thing that you should do is to make sure that the members are active. That would be my response to him. Now, in closing, we did hear and I do feel a lot of apprehension on Smart Africa's intervention. Just to clarify that we saw a gap, we came in. We are not interested again in the operations. Please take it and you can, record this, put this anywhere. We are not interested in running AFRINIC, but we are interested in safeguarding Africa's IP resources, because our vision is to transform Africa into a single digital market. And the basis of this is availability of IPs and our digital sovereignty. That being said, the fact that we are here, it's also a display of our intention to work with the community. And I want to appeal to you to work with us, continue giving us feedback, but the only way forward is when we have united, when we work together, and we have, so that this ICP2 thing does not eat us up. Thank you.
All right. Amin.
I would like to clarify something about Professor, what he was trying to say. He was saying that members should engage in the affairs of AFRINIC, because members, at the end of the day, they are going to vote on policies and procedures that they are proposed by the technical community, not essentially or governments or anybody else. So I believe there was a miscommunication that happened from Mr. Mohammed.
Yeah.
Okay, that's number one. And instead of one, I've been preparing like 10, okay, or 11. So I'm going to summarize them now because of time, so that we don't get bitten later on. Continuity is sovereignty. Business continuity is very important. Essential services must never stop. We should have a post-mortem report from the first chairman of AFRINIC at that time, maybe between 2021, 2022, the chair who took later on, Mr. Benjamin, and he's here, the board members as well. How did we arrive at such a situation, so that we can build up at least a good foundation for our governance for the next years, okay, and to face our challenges. Secondly, arbitration before courts. This is something that anybody can propose it. Anyone from this room, anyone from the international community, or even the regional community, they can propose this, and it can be added to the bylaw on the next AGM. They will be voting on it. It can be added. They can even propose it on the floor, for instance. We must bring accountability into our systems, because it seems that when things are running fine, no one is accountable. But when things get messy, everyone blames the other one. As we have heard today in this room, some people are blaming the government, some people are blaming the Mauritian government, some people are blaming the courts, some people are blaming the RIR system even, okay? Well, from experience of what's going on, it's all about representation, and it's not about what we wish should be done or our wishful thinking, okay? And the last one is a proposal that I have been pushing for, which is a hybrid treaty organization. Government will establish, will provide immunity to AFRINIC as an entity. Bottom-up organization is still valid, and multi-stakeholder is still valid, and the RIR norms are still valid. Thank you.
That's my point also on the last one. How do I address you? New board member and incoming whatever. So on that note, colleagues, I think I want to thank you all for listening attentively, and thank you to my panel and Mohammed there. And my panel wants a photo. So you have an opportunity there, guys with cameras, to take photos of my panel here.